All right, time to talk about the newest character for our what do you call it? I almost called it a collab. No, for our anniversary. So we have Ascended Roland, and we're going to talk about him and the UR. So let's talk about Roland first. So this is a physical dark DPS character who is going to be really good if you like doing crits and if you like lowering elemental resistance because he gets a lot of cool stuff with that. As far as like stats, I don't really talk about stats anymore, but I mean, they all look good enough for what he is. Similar resistances, I mean, really resistant to dark, weak to light, whatever you would normally see. The good thing is that he's nil to curse, that's super good. Resistant to stun is decent. Nil to illness is also really strong. So overall, he's got good stuff. He's also nil to blind, but that's not usually a big deal anyway. Now, going to the traits, because this is where things get interesting. So, using one weapon, using a skill, you have a chance to get the Demon Plate buff for 5 seconds. Now, what does the Demon Plate buff do? So, basically, your skills get 100% crit rate, and your SCT recovery speed is 400%. So both of those are pretty crazy, but I would say the 100% crit rate is the biggest, most craziest thing here. You know, we've never been able to get a character to at 100% crit rate. We're lucky if we can reach like 50, like to be real. So getting 100 is just nuts, especially if you're like doing pursuit builds. So obviously this is right up my alley. Uh, Also, outside of the demon plate buff, just regularly, when attacking, you hit the nullify enemy evasions. Skill damage plus 50%, damage cap 50k. So pretty good. And then his second trait, you get dark damage 40% with some damage cap. Basically, when you take little damage, you can survive, restore HP, and remove some stat buffs or stat debuffs. When using a skill, can be interrupted by most attacks, which basically means he has super armor, so a lot of us love that. Physical, magic, counter damage taken minus 50%. That's pretty big, to be honest. 50% shrugging pretty much all damage, but the only thing this doesn't take into account is specials, and that's really not a big deal. I mean, that last part basically means that he might have a chance to do well in PvP. Uh, Especially, I think the biggest question in my mind, can he survive zero? If he can survive at least like the first big hit from zero, I think he definitely stands a chance. Not many characters can survive zero. I think the only character that I've been able to use to survive a zero hit is Melza, and I think that's it. And even with that, like if there's like a second character doing damage, like a second physical DPS character or a mage, she'll still get destroyed with zero plus someone else. So, but mainly because of zero, though, to be perfectly honest. So if he can survive zero, that's huge. That makes him extremely a top tier character, at least for the time being, in a PvP scenario. Moving along. So he does have a spell that I think I'll rarely ever use. Basically, he uses half of his HP to to resurrect someone, basically. 100%. Now, I'll be honest with you, the only time that I'll ever use the spell is if my healer dies. That's the only reason I'd use this. Otherwise, my healer is going to do the resurrecting for me. So, it's cool to have, but again, the odds of me using this are very slim. Notable passives, Divinity Buster. So any type of group slayer is great. Being able to deal with gods, dragons, spirits, and undead types is just nice to have for free. Most bosses are god types, so this just helps to be a boss slayer for the most part. He does come with EX Spray, which is, the next highest thing for physical damage. Having auto haste is nice to kind of complement the 400%, SCT rate. Moving along, lots of dark damage cap. Elemental shield is kind of interesting. This will also potentially help shield him against Zero, and this will definitely help shield him against Celestio. So if you're worried about Celestio, I think that he'll be fine versus Celestio. The only thing I'm not confident is the Zero debate, but with Celestio, I think he'll be alright. If you build him properly, that is. Royal Feast, he's had this before. Always good to have for free. Moving along, lots of damage and damage cap from swords. We kind of expect all this. Special boost 3, fine, don't care about it. Some sharp eyes, which basically this is the better version because you get damage cap from it. Arc Being's Blessing, take a lethal hit. Use MP to survive and restore HP 2 times. So this basically ups his chances of surviving when getting hit pretty bad. Like I said, I think this gives him a lot of potential in PvP, seeing all the stuff. Demon or Demonian Battlefront. Nullify Strength and Intelligence debuffs. Chance to nullify critical attacks to units. It's fine. Nothing to get too hype about. Retribution. So using one weapon, boost our damage cap based on the enemy's resistance to dark. This is the passive is the game teaching you that it's important to lower enemies' resistance to deal damage. This is something that's been a big deal forever, but the fact that they have this here is a good way to teach players who haven't quite got it yet, like, hey, maybe I should consider doing this regularly. And this rewards you by getting more damage cap for it. So there's lots of ways to do this. You could use like a level 10 arc skill of Theopolis, which is one of my favorite URs. That'll automatically jump up by 50%, which means you'll automatically get this buff. I'll show an example of that later. You could also use spells and other people's passives that have like animas that lower resistance. There are multiple ways to do this. So you definitely want to take advantage of that to make sure he's getting the best damage possible. Really good passive. I'm not even going to try to say this. When equipped with only one weapon, crit cap 20k. Recover skill sensitivity stocks by 1 at the start of battle. So this does 2 things. 1, it gives you more damage cap if you crit. And 2, this is basically a quick trigger as well. And if you also equip quick trigger as well, that means you're getting 2 random SCT skills that you can use at the beginning of the battle. So really cool passive. Really, really cool. It's a 2 for 1. You have his Transcendent abilities, so more special damage, physical damage reduction, magic damage reduction, sword mastery, more damage and damage cap for swords, armor stuff to keep him alive. You have the attribute weakness, again, trying to tell you lower dark resistance. Damage cap gets increased as well. And here's something really interesting. I don't even think you could argue this. This is the best transcendent ability I think I've seen in any character. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but this is pretty strong. Won't faint from enemy attacks. That alone is pretty good. And then max stocks for all skills +1, which means you get Purple Orb, which is a skill that I don't have on my account because I missed the second running of DMC. Otherwise, I would have picked the arc for it. Boss Wave. Start fully restore special gauge. So now that's not super duper crazy, but it is kind of cool, right? You don't usually get that. So you have basically a 3-fer, and one of those 3-fers is super strong. Well, actually, kind of 2 of them are super strong, but either way, like, this is just crazy that they have all this built in. So overall thoughts, like, this character in a PvE scenario would be great. He's going to have very high DPS, especially if you're the type that likes to do pursuit builds like myself. So I Actually, let's do this real quick. I want to kind of give some recommendations when I say pursuit build, just for those who don't know what pursuits are, and for those who haven't seen my videos on pursuit arcs. Now, this is one that I think is the worst, but could be potentially good. The reason that I consider this the worst is because you're not guaranteed to get this passive. So basically, what this does is if you crit, you have a chance to get more damage and damage cap. So you're not guaranteed to get this buff if you crit. You still have to go through another randomizer to see if you're lucky enough to get this trade off. However, if this was 100%, this would probably be super strong for him. But I think it's just okay because, again, it's very limited. Also, if we go to SSRs, you have Starbow as well. Another one of my favorite arcs of all time, right here. So when you crit, you get a pursuit. But if anyone that's ever used the Last Cloudia Goldmine website, you will know that the damage you get from the pursuit here is not as strong. The thing that makes this good is the fact that the pursuits are considered no attribute, but the damage modifier is lower than Icy Guardian. I think this one's like 10 or 20%, or 10 to 25, something like that. I don't remember by heart. So that's why this isn't considered the best, but I still think it's pretty good, especially if the enemy is weak to ice. And the reason I bring that up is because the best arc for something like this would be Icy Guardian, because when you crit, you also get pursuit. Now, according to Lake's Goldmine, I believe the damage modifier for the pursuit is like up to 50%, which is better than the Starbow in terms of like how much raw damage you can do. The only downside to this is that the pursuit is ice based. So if the enemy that you're attacking is resistant to ice, this will not do you any good. So just want to make sure that you kind of have all that. Now, unfortunately, Last Cloudia doesn't really tell you all this stuff. Like, you kind of just have to figure it out on your own or find other resources that are actually willing to break it down. So assuming that the Goldmine website is accurate, this is the best arc to use when you're doing like pursuit builds, unless they're strong against ice. So just kind of had to put that out there. I made a video about it a while back, but I'm sure not everybody's watched it. So here you go. All right, going back to the gotcha. So overall, I think the character is great, especially for PvE. I think for PvP, this character has a lot of potential, but it's going to take some testing to see how good he can be. And a couple of thoughts I have regarding like Arena specifically. If he can survive zero, at least like the first big hit from a well-built zero, to be more specific, that gives him a very, very, very high bar. That makes him a top tier unit by itself. If his rate of getting 100% crit is high enough, I assume it's only 10%, but if it actually is more consistent, he could potentially one-shot everything with, well, everyone except maybe Melza. Melza's probably the only character he won't be able to one-shot, but I think he could potentially one-shot everyone else. The reason that Melza won't die because one, she's resistance to dark, and two, she's just the best tank in the game. Like, you're not one-shotting her. I mean, Zero could possibly do it, but it'd have to be like a very, very well-built one. But hard to say. But anyway, I think he has PvP potential, but I don't know. I haven't built him enough to test that theory, so that's only speculation. I think he has potential. For PvE, I think he'll be pretty good. So let's go ahead and do my showcase. And in the showcase, you're going to see me use the arc I talked about, Theopolis, to lower the Bahamut's resistance so that he can deal the maximum amount of damage. So check it out. So yeah, like that, his HP bar just got annihilated. Like that's kind of how crazy his damage can be. Now, personally, I haven't added any crit up for this character just because the whole idea is he should be able to naturally get a 100% crit rate. So what's the point of giving him more crit rate? Once you get a hit 100%, you're good to go. I think naturally the highest that we can get someone's crit rate to is somewhere maybe like in the 30% tile, if I'm not, if I'm not, I might be wrong on that, but it's somewhere around 30 to 40. I think is like the best we can do with certain like accessories, passives you can learn and stuff like that. But yeah, getting crit rate is really hard, which is why I said earlier that you'd be lucky to get 50% because I don't even think that's possible. But overall, regardless of whether you like crits or not, he's still a good unit because, you know, his damage when it comes to like, resistances, if you lower them well enough, will be high enough just to get the job done. But if you're the crit person like me that likes to do pursuits, it just ups his value substantially. But I do think it's an easy to use character as well, so have fun with him. Let's talk about the art because this is actually the thing that convinced me to spend some of my free crystals. Full disclosure, I was able to get Roland through tickets, so I could have just stopped there. But I really wanted this UR, so I spent 30,000 free gems to get the UR. Unfortunately, I was not successful in getting it, so I'm just going to give up. But I tried. But why did I want this UR? So for starters, let's just look at the art trait. Basically, using one weapon, all attribute physical damage plus 40%. Really strong. And then, of course, you get some damage cap. You also get more damage cap if you beat a group type, which is called demonic, which is a new type they're going to have. This might be a new slayer in the future. Beasts, creatures, undead, and spirits. What feels weird about this is that you have undead and spirits, which is also in like divinity group passive, so maybe they could have used two other slots, but whatever, not a big deal. Also, give all allies a physical attack damage, or all enemies a minus 20% debuff for the attack damage. Nullify piercing effects from enemy attacks. So all of this is really good. I think this would be good for PvP. Super good for that. And even for PvE, just lots of damage and damage cap, especially against certain types. And then you go to the learnables. Most of this you can get in a lot of places, but what really caught my attention the most is Demajudge Wedge, which is a 9 SC ability. Battlestar, give all enemies and all attribute resistance minus 10 debuff. Chance to give silence. The minus 10 debuff to element or attribute resistance is huge. I think we've only had an ability like this one time in the past. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I never got this arc. I was not lucky enough to get it. But I want to say this came from the ReZero collab. If not, maybe Dr. Stone, but I want to say it was ReZero. There was a passive you could learn, and this is like year one of Last Cloudia, where you could lower resistance by 10%, but I think it did like chance to curse, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong on that. I believe it was ReZero, but the problem with that is that this is the only collab. Maybe there's one other, but it's the only collab I can think of that we've never got a rerun on. And it's like from year one. It's pretty crazy. I have a feeling we're never going to see a ReZero rerun. If we do, they might do what they're doing with the, what's it called? I never played the game, but the one with, I kind of forgot. They basically they're doing a thing where instead of running a collab, you're just going to get the banner. I hope they do that with ReZero too, so that we have a chance to get the arc that has that ability, so you know what I'm talking about. But there is another arc skill or learnable that does this, but it's from an arc that we have no way of getting, basically. So the fact that we're going to have this on a UR means that everybody will have a chance to get it next year when it comes up on the selector, if you're not fortunate enough to pull this now. But really, really good passive. Super good. We also have two-headed sword boost 3, so if you want some more damage and damage cap, that'll be pretty cool. There is a way to get this without paying a lot of SC for it, but I'll talk about that in another video. But this is going to focus mainly on the arc. So again, Demon Judge Wedge, super duper great, top tier, passive. Two-headed sword boost 3 is decent. And then the other reason that I want this UR is the Ether reward. Just looking at the stats, they're decent. For an accessory, they're decent. But the trait, crit rate 3%. Now, there's only one other accessory that I can think of that has crit rate, which is also 3%. I think it's from like a 3 or 4, like a SSR arc. I'm sorry, maybe an SR. It's an older one, but it does have crit rate 3%. But this one also gives you damage cap against bosses 2k, which is nice. But to me, the selling factor is the crit rate because we don't have many ways to increase crit rate. So this gives us another option if you're really trying to get that pursuit stuff up. So super duper good. This doesn't have like an arc skill that you can use. And they do that because the arc trait is strong enough as is. And I kind of agree with this. I don't think every UR needs an arc skill. So the fact that they're just making the traits better is good enough for me. But this, honestly, I think is a top tier UR, 100%. Great arc trait, great learnables, and a great accessory. Or a great, I should say, Ether reward. You don't get that in many arcs these days. So this is definitely a top tier, high quality arc. And yeah, I think that's going to be it for this video. Thank you for watching this entire time, and good luck to those that you're pulling. Later.